Filming stopped. Cameras shut down. A crew of 200 stood in stunned silence, listening to what Hardy was telling the director. No one knew this quiet man carried such a powerful sense of justice inside him. What happened that day reminded everyone why Hardy is such a respected actor. The massive film studio outside London buzzed with unusual energy that morning. Christopher Nolan's latest project, Tempest, was one of Hollywood's biggest productions. A $200 million budget, A-list actors, and the most advanced equipment in the industry. The sound stages stretched like aircraft hangars, filled with elaborate sets that recreated 1940s New York with meticulous detail. Tom Hardy was preparing for his character, Marcus Kane, dressed in a black suit, with that familiar intensity burning in his eyes. Hardy had arrived early, as was his custom. He preferred the quiet moments before the chaos of filming began, when he could center himself and slip into character. His trailer was spartanly furnished, containing only scripts, notebooks, and a photograph of his late friend Jack, whose memory still drove him to seek authenticity in every role. But that morning, something different pulsed through the set. Young actress Elena Rodriguez was experiencing her first major film. At 23, theater-trained at Juilliard, talented but inexperienced in the film world, she was doing everything she could to survive in Hollywood's merciless landscape. She'd arrived on set at 5 a.m. for makeup and costume, her eyes carrying both excitement and the kind of fear that comes with knowing this could make or break her career. Elena had spent months preparing for this role. Sarah Chen, a war correspondent caught between duty and survival, was complex and challenging. Elena had researched everything from 1940s journalism to trauma psychology. She'd worked with dialect coaches, studied period films, and immersed herself completely in the character's world. When Hardy first saw her in the makeup trailer, practicing her lines with quiet intensity, he remembered his own first film experience. Back then, he too was young, eager, but terrified of disappointing everyone who had taken a chance on him. He approached Elena, touching her shoulder gently. "First big film?" he asked, his voice warm and genuine. Elena nodded, her nervousness evident. "Don't forget to breathe," Hardy smiled, understanding exactly what she was feeling. "Everything will be fine. Trust your preparation." The first scene was the moment Elena's character Sarah meets Marcus Kane in a bombed-out cafe in wartime London. An emotionally intense sequence that would showcase Elena's acting abilities and set the tone for their relationship throughout the film. Nolan stood behind the cameras, controlling every detail with his characteristic precision. "Quiet on set," his voice echoed through the cavernous studio. Elena took her position at the cafe table, hands trembling slightly as she arranged the prop newspaper. Hardy noticed her nerves and gave her an encouraging nod, a silent reminder of their earlier conversation. The cameras rolled. Elena delivered her lines with surprising confidence, her voice carrying the vulnerability her character needed while maintaining the strength of a woman who had survived war zones. Hardy responded with his trademark intensity, creating a chemistry that even surprised the seasoned crew members watching from behind the monitors. "Cut!" Nolan called out after the first take. "Good, but we need more emotion from Elena. The character needs to be more accessible to audiences." Elena's face fell slightly, confusion replacing the confidence she'd just displayed. Hardy saw the disappointment flash across her features, recognizing the familiar sting of directorial criticism that could either build or destroy an actor's confidence. They reset for take 2. This time, Elena pushed harder, digging deeper into the character's emotional core. Her performance was raw, authentic, powerful, exactly what the scene demanded. "Cut!" Nolan's voice carried a hint of frustration this time. "Elena, you're overacting. Pull it back. Make it more commercial, more appealing to mainstream audiences." Hardy frowned, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. He'd seen Elena's performance, and it was exactly what the scene needed. Authentic, real, unpolished in the best way possible. Commercial wasn't what this story required, and he knew Nolan understood that as well as anyone. Take 3. Elena tried to find the balance Nolan demanded, but confusion clouded her performance. She was second-guessing every choice, every gesture, every word. Her natural instincts were being suffocated by the pressure to be something she wasn't. The character that had felt so real in her first take now seemed artificial, manufactured. Cut. Elena, you're thinking too much. Just be prettier about it. Smile more. The audience needs to like you. The words hit like a physical blow. Hardy's jaw tightened visibly, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Elena's face went pale, her confidence visibly cracking like glass under pressure. Around them, the crew shifted uncomfortably, many looking away as if witnessing something they shouldn't see. This wasn't direction. This was diminishment of the worst kind. Hardy had witnessed this pattern before in Hollywood, young actresses being reduced to their appearance rather than their talent, their worth measured by likability rather than ability. Sarah Mitchell, the script supervisor, exchanged a concerned glance with Danny Park, the cinematographer. Both had worked with Nolan for years and had never seen him this focused on surface-level concerns. Usually, he was all about depth, complexity, the layers beneath the obvious. This felt different, wrong somehow. Take 4 became a complete disaster. Elena, now thoroughly rattled, stumbled through her lines like someone walking through quicksand. Her natural talent was buried under layers of self-doubt and confusion. The authenticity that had made her first take brilliant was completely gone, replaced by a desperate attempt to please. She smiled when the character should have been serious, softened moments that required steel, and completely lost the thread of what made Sarah Chen compelling. Cut. This isn't working. Nolan's voice carried clear irritation now, his usual patience wearing thin. Elena, you're a professional actress. Act like one. Give me something I can use. Hardy watched Elena's shoulders sag as if she were carrying the weight of the entire production. Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes, though she fought valiantly to hold them back. This was her dream role, her big break, and it was slipping away with each take like sand through her fingers. The young woman who had arrived with such hope and determination was being systematically broken down in front of everyone. Marcus Webb, the assistant director, stepped forward sensing the dangerous tension building on set. He'd worked on enough productions to recognize when things were about to go sideways. Maybe we should take a break, he suggested quietly, his voice barely audible over the uncomfortable silence that had settled over the set like fog. No, Nolan snapped, his frustration finally boiling over publicly. We're behind schedule already. Elena, one more take. And this time, remember that pretty faces sell tickets. Give me something audiences want to see, not some pretentious art house performance. The casual cruelty of the comment sent shockwaves through the crew. Even the grips and gaffers, typically focused on their technical work, stopped what they were doing. Someone audibly gasped. This wasn't the Christopher Nolan they knew, the director who had always championed substance over style, depth over superficiality. That was the moment something snapped inside Tom Hardy. The set fell silent as Hardy stepped out of his mark, moving deliberately toward Nolan. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet, each one measured and purposeful. His voice, when he spoke, was calm, but carried across the entire soundstage like controlled thunder, the kind that warns of the storm to come. What did you just say? Nolan looked up, clearly surprised by the interruption. His usual commanding presence faltered slightly under Hardy's intense stare. Tom, we're in the middle of filming. This isn't the time. What did you just say to her? Hardy's voice remained calm, but there was unmistakable steel underneath, the kind of quiet authority that made everyone on set stop what they were doing and pay attention. I'm directing my actress, Nolan replied, his tone defensive but losing some of its earlier authority. He could sense the shift in the room, the way the crew's attention had focused laser-like on this unprecedented confrontation. Hardy shook his head slowly, his expression a mixture of disappointment and growing determination. No, you're not directing. You're tearing down a young woman who came here to do her job, who's been doing her job brilliantly, I might add. The crew exchanged glances, some shocked, others nodding in quiet agreement. No one had ever seen Hardy challenge a director like this, especially not Christopher Nolan. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with the prop knives scattered around the set. Camera operators, sound technicians, makeup artists, all stood frozen, witnessing something unprecedented in their years of film experience. Elena stood watching this unfold, her emotions cycling between gratitude, embarrassment, and a growing sense of vindication. Someone was finally seeing what she had been trying to accomplish, recognizing the work she had put in. "Tom, perhaps we should discuss this privately," Nolan suggested, clearly uncomfortable with the public nature of the confrontation. He could sense the crew's judgment, feel their eyes measuring his words and actions. This wasn't how he was used to operating. "No," Hardy's response was immediate and firm, cutting through the air like a blade. "You criticized her publicly, in front of the entire crew. We'll address it publicly." Elena stood frozen in her mark, torn between gratitude and mortification. The entire cast and crew were now watching this unprecedented standoff between two titans of the industry, titans she had only dreamed of working with months ago. Hardy turned slightly to include Elena in his sightline, then looked back at Nolan with laser focus. "That young woman has given you 4 different interpretations of this character. Each one was honest, real, and exactly what this story needs. But instead of recognizing her talent, instead of nurturing it, you've reduced her to whether she's pretty enough for audiences." Nolan's face reddened, his usually pale complexion flushing with anger and embarrassment. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not in front of his crew, especially not by an actor he considered a friend. "I'm thinking about the commercial viability of the film. We have investors, we have..." "Commercial viability." Hardy's voice rose for the first time, his passion breaking through his usual controlled demeanor like water bursting through a dam. "When did that become more important than honest storytelling? When did we decide that authenticity should take a back seat to being likable?" The soundstage was dead silent now. Even the usual hum of equipment seemed muted, as if the machines themselves were listening. Grips stopped moving cables, script supervisors put down their notes, makeup artists paused mid-touch-up. Everyone was witnessing something that would be talked about for years, passed down through industry circles like legend. Hardy continued, his passion building with each word, years of frustration finally finding voice. Elena's first take was perfect. Raw, real, human, everything this character needs to be. But you wanted her to be more accessible. Her second take showed incredible depth and complexity, but you wanted it more commercial. By the third take, you'd confused her so much she couldn't access what made her performance special in the first place. Some crew members began nodding in agreement, remembering Elena's first take and how powerful it had been. They had seen it too, the authenticity, the truth of it. Nolan opened his mouth to respond, but Hardy wasn't finished. The floodgates had opened, and years of witnessing similar injustices poured out like a river that had finally broken through its banks. And then you told her to be prettier, to smile more, as if her worth as an actress, as a human being, comes down to whether she's pleasing enough for you. Hardy's voice carried the weight of every young actor he'd seen diminished, every talent he'd watched get crushed under the weight of impossible expectations. Elena had tears streaming down her face now, but they weren't tears of humiliation anymore. They were tears of relief, of validation, of finally being seen and understood. Someone was standing up for her, fighting for her work when she couldn't fight for herself. Hardy took a step closer to Nolan, his presence commanding but not threatening. "I've worked with you for years, Christopher. I respect your vision, your talent, your dedication to the craft. But this isn't directing. This is diminishing someone who came here to collaborate, to create something meaningful." The crew members nearest to Elena could see her shoulders straightening, her confidence slowly returning with each of Hardy's words. This wasn't just about one scene anymore, or even one actor. This was about dignity, respect, and the responsibility that comes with power in Hollywood. "You want to know what audiences want?" Hardy's voice carried across the entire set, reaching every corner of the massive soundstage. "They want truth. They want to see real human beings dealing with real emotions. They want to feel something authentic, not watch someone perform likable." Nolan looked around, realizing that the entire crew was watching, waiting for his response. His usual confidence seemed shaken, the authority he wielded so naturally suddenly feeling hollow. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and he could feel it in every pair of eyes focused on him. Hardy pressed on, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "Elena is talented, more than talented, she's gifted. But talent needs nurturing, not tearing down. Support, not criticism disguised as direction. The silence stretched on, heavy with expectation and the weight of truth. Finally, Nolan spoke, his voice considerably quieter than before, stripped of its earlier arrogance. I was trying to help her reach the performance I envisioned for the character. By telling her to be prettier? Hardy's question hung in the air like a challenge no one could ignore, a mirror reflecting the ugliness of what had transpired. Nolan looked at Elena, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time that day. He saw the tears, the uncertainty, the bruised confidence of someone who'd been made to feel small in a place where she should have felt empowered and creative. "Elena," Nolan said finally, his voice softer now, carrying genuine remorse for the first time. I apologize. That was inappropriate and unprofessional. You didn't deserve that." But Hardy wasn't finished. The moment was too important, the lesson too crucial to let slide. "It's not just inappropriate, Christopher. It's damaging. Do you understand that this young woman will remember this moment for the rest of her career? Every time she steps in front of a camera, she'll hear voices telling her she needs to be prettier, more likable, rather than more authentic." Elena found her voice, speaking clearly for the first time since the confrontation began. "Thank you," she said quietly, looking directly at Hardy with gratitude and newfound strength. "Thank you for seeing what I was trying to do, for recognizing the work." Hardy turned to her, his expression gentle but serious. "You don't need to thank me. You were doing beautiful work from the very first take. Trust your instincts, they're excellent ones." When filming resumed 2 hours later, something fundamental had shifted on the set. Nolan approached Elena with genuine respect, asking for her input on the character's motivation and emotional journey. The performance that emerged was a true collaboration, not a dictation from on high. Elena's sixth take was extraordinary. She'd found her way back to the truth of the character, but now it was supported by confidence rather than undermined by doubt. When Nolan called, "Cut," this time, his voice carried satisfaction and genuine respect. "That's exactly what we needed," he said, and everyone could hear that he meant it. "Elena, that was beautiful, honest work." That evening, as news of the incident spread quietly through Hollywood's tight-knit community, it became clear that something important had happened, not just for Elena, but for the industry itself. Tom Hardy had reminded everyone that true leadership isn't about commanding a room. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it puts your own relationships at risk. Sometimes the most powerful moments happen not in front of cameras, but behind them, not in the fictional worlds we create, but in the real choices we make about how we treat each other when no one else is watching. Tom Hardy understood that fundamental truth, and that day, he reminded everyone else of it too.